All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a presentation of TDG Gold, the gateway to the Toodoggone production corridor. My name is Christina Pilon, Investor Relations for TDG Gold. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started on the presentation. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them in the Q&A box on your screen, and we will try to address as many as time permits at the end of the session. Also, this webinar is being recorded, and we will make a playback available on our website, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And if you have any trouble accessing that playback, please email me at kpilon@tdggold.com, and I will email you a copy directly. I'm very pleased to introduce CEO and Director Dr. Fletcher Morgan and Senior Project Geologist and BC Program Lead Steve Kramer, who will be presenting on behalf of the company today. And with that, I'll pass it over to you, Fletcher.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our TDG webinar. As Christina mentioned, my name's Fletcher Morgan. I'm the CEO, Director, and also an owner of TDG. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging that I'm a white settler of English ancestry living as a guest on unceded lands of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. My co-host for the webinar today is Steve Kramer. As Christina mentioned, he's our Senior Geologist and BC Program Lead. Let Steve quickly introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Kramer. I'm a Senior Geologist and BC Program Lead. I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples as the Indigenous keepers of the traditional and unceded lands in which I live and work.
Thanks, Steve. I'm aware that there are shareholders that have joined us for the webinar today. I'd like to thank each of you for your continued support. The closing of our $9.7 million financing today provides us the funds that we need to continue advancing our projects in the Toodoggone. We're truly excited about what we have planned for this year, not least because of the results that we've been seeing from our 2021 drill campaign. I also believe that we may have some important partners and stakeholder representatives joining us on the webinar today. Again, welcome, and thank you for your continued support as we look to advance our projects with the concepts and vision of working in allyship with you at the very front of our thinking. I'm going to lead off the webinar today by providing a brief overview and update on TDG, including aspects of our corporate strategy and our aims and objectives for 2022, before handing over to Steve to step you through a summary of the results so far, and to begin to paint a picture of the opportunity that he sees for advancing Shasta in 2022. And as Christina mentioned, if you have any questions, please do submit them. We will either try to answer them as we go along or at the end, depending on how much time we have left. So I'm now going to share my screen, and the slide deck that we're going to step you through today, I hope everyone can see it, is available on our website. Just as a principle, every time we put out results, we do try to maintain our slide deck up to date. So please do check back on our website regularly for the latest version. Before I proceed, we will be including forward-looking statements in today's webinar. Please do read the disclaimer that's on the screen at your convenience. So TDG, and I know a lot of you on the webinar today are familiar with our story, but for those that aren't, we are a gold-silver focused advanced exploration company with assets in the Toodoggone district of north central BC. Our key focus is two former producing high-grade mines, which have mining leases valid for 30 years with local community First Nation support, for which we're very grateful. And we're revisioning those projects away from the small-scale, high-grade, underground combination open pit operations that operated as recently as 2012, and we're revisioning those as bulk tonnage opportunities at lower and medium and lower grade. We completed just over 8,000 meters of oriented core drilling at one of those two projects last year, and the results are being published. We published 36 of 51 holes drilled, and we do intend to publish the remaining results within the near future in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we're aiming to publish our inaugural NI 43101 mineral resource estimate for Shasta in the first half of this year. We're still shooting for May or June. A lot of that obviously depends still on getting the finalized results, and obviously then handing that over to the resource modeling team that's working with us. We do have a third mining lease. It's called METS, that does have a historical resource and reserve. We won't be talking about METS today, but please be aware that we do have that, and we are excited to try and get up there this season and work on METS. What you get with TDG, which I think differentiates us, makes us quite an exciting proposition, is that combination of experience, leadership, and management, but also that we're working in a permitted mine area. And I do have a slide that goes into more detail on that. I've mentioned the 8,000 meters of oriented core that we drilled last year, but that was building on a base of over 65,000 meters of historical drilling. We're revisioning the projects as open pit bulk tonnage opportunities. They're road accessible. We're an ESG focused operator. Christy Smith, our VP Sustainability, is a rising star in British Columbia in terms of her visionary approach to how to make working in our sector truly sustainable and inclusive, putting the rights and opportunities of the Indigenous peoples in whose territories traditional territories we're lucky enough to operate at the forefront of everything we do. And we're attractively valued, we think, on a comparable basis, not just with the peers within the Toodoggone district, but also across British Columbia. And we have a fast track strategy. And I think that also makes us quite unique when you compare us with other opportunities that you may have for your investment dollars. So our team, I won't go into too much detail, an experienced board that is really focused on exploration and advancement, also with strong capital markets experience. I want to focus instead really on the technical team that we're building. As I mentioned, I'm joined today by Steve Kramer, who'll be stepping you through the results. He was instrumental in leading our program, our drill campaign at Shasta last year. Christy Smith, I've already mentioned. A recent addition to our team is Chris Dale. You may have heard of his name in the context of other projects he's worked on, including working for Perpetual Resources, which was formerly known as Midas Gold. He is fantastic at targeting work, and what Steve has done with the team is he's split the team into two parts. The technical team, one of them has been working on the results and the resource work. The other team, part of the team has been working on helping us target. We believe that there's exploration upside in our projects. Well, the question is, therefore, where do you start? Where do you begin? And Chris has been leading that initiative. Sue Bird, who is our resource modeler, working for Moose Mountain Technical Services. And then Todd Ballantyne, a consultant geophysicist who's been working closely with us, processing our results from last season. New slide here. As of today, we've closed our $9.7 million financing. Our current shares issued now standing there for just over 96 million. As of our last quarterly filing, we had just over $2.5 million cash in treasury, market capitalization of around $40 million, corporate burn of around $70,000 a month, and a preliminary exploration budget now for 2022 of $8 million. Share ownership has changed with the latest financing. I'm pleased to acknowledge the investment now of two new institutional shareholders, Franklin and also the Phoenix Fund out of Europe, but also need to thank and acknowledge Gold 2000, Conway Fund out of Switzerland, and also Merck Investments out of San Francisco for their continued support. And in case the audience is interested, analyst coverage was initiated on us last year by Cormark Securities, a very good report, not only focusing on ourselves and trying to unpack the opportunity that we present through independent eyes, but also bringing together the potential of the Toodoggone as a district, and more specifically the Toodoggone production corridor, of which we are the gateway. Oops. So, corporate strategy. Top level, keep it very simple. Gold, silver focused, brownfield exploration, working within the permitted mine area, aiming to define a resource at Shasta within the very near future for a bulk tonnage target, and then fast tracking Shasta through the stages that you would expect to a development decision, which we're hoping to achieve within the next couple of years. And then a scientific approach to evaluating all of our other projects. And just to paint that overview, we have 5 projects in the Toodoggone district. And again, the aim with each of those projects is not only to advance them, but it's to do it as fast as possible. Certainly at Shasta and Metz and Baker, we're starting from that wealth of information from the historical drilling, on which obviously we've now drilled just over 8,000 meters at Shasta. But also our earlier stage projects, Oxide Peak and Bot. Certainly with Oxide Peak, we drilled 1,000 meters last season at one target, and we'll look to publish some information about those results in the near future. And then at Bot is much earlier stage. It's right next to Evergold's Golden Lion project, to the northwest of our Baker Shasta project. And we're excited to get back up there this year. But at Bot, it's really all about moving it from geological anomalies, which we know exist, to exploration targets. So then just to quickly move into to the opportunities at Shasta and Baker, are two former producing gold silver mines that are the focus of our work. High-grade gold silver mines, Shasta had operated to 2012, Baker operated through into the 90s. At Shasta, over 28,000 meters of historical drilling. We published a geological potential, which is like a pre-resource estimate, that we published that in March of last year. Just under 1 million to 1.5 million ounce potential gold equivalent. We see nothing in the results that we've been publishing to dissuade us away from that target. Over 8,000 meters completed last year, with the results starting, in our opinion, to demonstrate that those fabulous qualities that you need in order to fast track a project through to a production decision, namely that combination of grade, but also the continuity. And we're targeting that rapid progress now through resource estimation through to what we hope will be a preliminary economic assessment for Shasta by Q1 of next year. Mining lease extended to 2050 with local community support, and exploration upside around the known areas of mineralization at Shasta. Steve will get into that. And then switching gears to Baker, we don't propose to really go into any detail on Baker this, in this webinar. We're really going to focus on Shasta, but it's a former high-grade gold silver mine operated at a head grade of around 30 grams a ton with a cutoff grade of 12 grams a ton gold equivalent, over 30,000 meters of historical drilling. But it's a large alteration footprint covering over 10 square kilometers, which requires and warrants that systematic exploration that that will take us several years, in our opinion, to get to grips with and advance. One of the reasons why we've decided to focus on Shasta. Baker is also where our existing mill is located. It's a 200 ton a day mill operated, as I mentioned, as recently as 2012. It's in our opinion, in very good shape. We had it independently reviewed by Tetra Tech in 2020, and associated with that is a small tailings storage facility. We had hoped to get up there and drill the tailings this winter, but it's been unseasonably warm, and therefore we've postponed that till next winter. We want to drill the tailings for a couple of reasons. One is we believe there's some gold still remaining that could be of obviously interest if we were to in a production scenario, but also we believe we'll get valuable metallurgical information if we test those tailings. And the mining lease at Baker has been extended for 30 years as well. And last year we put in place a 50-person fully winterized state-of-the-art camp. We bought it from the oil patch in Alberta, and that, in our opinion, is an excellent investment because it gives us the opportunity to now begin to really plan to drill all year round and explore all year round, much as our neighbors have been able to achieve. And we also, as I mentioned, have another mining lease called Metz. It's located 23 kilometers up the road from Baker, where there's an historical resource and reserve, which you can read about in our presentation, but also on our website. We take our responsibilities very seriously in terms of working in partnership and allyship with the local communities and First Nations that we're privileged to, whose traditional territories we're privileged to work in. They are the Qudacha, the Seke Dene, the Takla, and the Toltan. We invested significantly into the camp last year, not just in terms of putting in place, the facilities that we did, but also continuing with the cleanup, doing that in partnership with some excellent businesses owned and operated by the local communities, Chucho Environmental, Chucho Industries, Sasuchan LP, and we look forward to working closely with them again to continue to deliver on our commitments. And we do prioritize working with their businesses and companies that have entered into joint ventures and partnerships with those local communities. It's very important to us. And so then zeroing in now on why it's such an exciting area to be operating. We're in what's called the Toodoggone Production Corridor. It's a 60-kilometer road-connected area in north-central BC, starting from Kemess in the southwest here and running up past a large airstrip, and the northern sort of half of that production corridor has 5 former producing mines, of which TDG owns 3, Metz, Baker, and the one we've been focusing on, which is called Shasta. A lot of activity up there last year. Our neighbors, Benchmark Metals, drilled just over 100,000 meters. They have a resource, and I believe they're gathering. They're looking to expand that and advance their project through again those similar stages that we're looking to achieve with Shasta. And then to the north, TDG Gold, which I know has some exciting opportunities there, and within which our Metz mining lease is located. And so just to zero in then on Baker and Shasta itself, as I mentioned, Baker, this large alteration footprint justifies systematic exploration. Our mill and our tailings storage facilities are located right next door to Baker. It operated through into the 90s. Benchmark Metals has been drilling very close to our boundary with Baker. Our focus, though, has been Shasta, again, road connected, a much smaller mineralized footprint. Based on historical information, but also 28,000 meters of which a lot more had been assayed. So we really felt we had a better starting point for getting back into Shasta and drilling last season. And at this point here, I'm going to just mention that we're operating in a permitted mine area. The permitted mine area envelops both of Baker and Shasta, partly over each of the mining leases there. And within that permitted mine area, we are allowed to undertake certain activities without requiring additional permits. We focused on drilling at Shasta within the permitted mine area last year. Steve will go into more detail, but this year, the opportunity is to now step off the permitted mine area. We were awarded our notice of work for drilling off the permitted mine area in October last year. And we're looking to advance that this year. And lastly, from me, this is Shasta. Just to emphasize, you can see the mountains in the background. Shasta itself is more like a hill. You can walk up it. The known mineralized footprint covers 1,500 meters north-south by 800 meters east-west. And within that, small-scale, open pit and underground historical operations. The underground mainly operating in a north-south direction. In actual fact, historical mining focused on effectively mining it small scale as an almost like an arrowhead. But in the 1990s, it was already known that there was surrounding the high grade that they were targeting for historical production. There was halo style mineralization of medium and lower grade spanning potentially tens of meters. Lucky enough that we had a team led by Steve last year that was able to get in there and not only validate those historical drill results, but also to see an increase in the gold grade and certainly, in our opinion, a significant increase in the silver grade through drilling HQ core, which gives us the confidence that actually to get back up there this year and continue work at Shasta, which we think was a mine, and we absolutely believe will be a mine again. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Steve to step you through what we did last year and the results that we've been publishing.
Thanks, Fletcher. So in 2021, we drilled 51 holes of oriented core. These holes were designed to validate the historical assays, test the near mine workings extensions for mineralization, and test that concept of a halo of lower to medium grade mineralized material in periphery to the high grade that was historically extracted. Historically, the Shasta concept was high-grade gold-dominated zones comprised of dense quartz carbonate veining and hydrothermally brecciated volcaniclastics adjacent to the two dominant structures. the structural conduits, which are here. Is the mouse moving?
Yes, it is now, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here, the Shasta Fault on the western side, and along this, which is the GM structure on the eastern side. The Shasta Fault is stipply dipping to the west. The JM is dipping to the east, and they kind of form an upside down V. Is kind of the closest visualization that is thought to converge in the north and diverge to the south. So historically, the material that was in closest proximity to these two conduits was underground mined for high grade, and there were two small surface extraction pits. However, TDG, we revisited the Shasta concept and sought to prove that there's a halo of lower to medium grade mineralization that's proximal to the main structures, and that has the potential for bulk mining methods. We did that through the rigorous assaying of almost the entire length of all our drill holes in 2021. We took oriented core data on almost all of our drill holes, and we sought to prove this continuity of the halo. So we achieved our objectives, and we've collected enough data, and in conjunction with about 30,000 meters of historical drilling, to feed into a model to develop our 43101 resource that should be coming up in the next couple months. We'll advance. There we go. So for the next few slides, I'll walk through some of our results and illustrate the importance of each concept of what we learned in 2021. Here's just an assay table of the results that'll be presented. This is summarized from our news releases. If you want more detail about the specific results, they're all on our website in news releases. So importantly, Shasta has about a 500 meter strike length of main mineralized body. That this will comprise the dominant portion of our resource estimate that's coming. But as I'll show, that we found significant mineralization over 700 meters away from the historical mine workings, south of kind of that main zone where we did hit bonanza grade gold silver. And between this main zone and our hit in 2021, the assays here are very under assayed with less than 50% of the core length assayed. So I guess I'll get you back. So I guess from these sections, we'll go from the north and then step south through the sections. Just as a walkthrough of our results. So this is the Upper Creek, or the JM zone. It's some of the most northerly drilling we tested in 2021. Our permit to explore off the mining area came late in the year, so we elected to focus on near mine drilling to have a better geological control and control on mineralization before rushing to step off of it. But we are fully permitted to continue off the permitted mine area in 2022. So this is about 300 meters from the historical open pit, and it displays continuity of mineralization to the north. As you can see, there's the grade bars, purple. Take note of purple and red. Purple is above 2 grams a ton, and red is above 1 gram a ton. So you can see that the mineralization, the higher grade mineralization, is in proximal to the Shasta Fault, which is the controlling structure. But then, as you see in hole 6, there's still a broad intercept of around 1 gram a ton material from near surface, which kind of illustrates that concept of the halo mineralization surrounding the higher grade adjacent to the structure. And again, it's important that you can see that these portions of drill holes that are from the historics, it's not zero assay value. They were very under assayed.
Oh, sorry.
Next. Oops. Can I go to the
Hey.
next?
Yeah.
Okay, so this section is in the vicinity of the previous section, showing east-west, where the other one was more on a 60 degree. These are all northerly looking sections. So it kind of shows the same concepts spoken to, that we have this high grade 7 meters of almost 8 grams over 200 grams silver in proximity to the Shasta Fault, and the mineralized halo extending below those high grade areas. It looked like there's a lot of unassayed material out to the east. So it looked like from that historical endeavors were aimed at targeting the visually high grade material through intense quartz carbonate veining or brecciation, or really high vein density or intense brecciation, and they didn't assay the remainder of the core. So this presents us an opportunity to revisit these areas and assay or redrill and assay the core that historically was not assayed or underappreciated. And material like this in holes that weren't assayed presents an opportunity to incorporate this into our kind of mineralized target. So hole 26, hole 2126 is what we colloquially call the pudding hole. This is a spot where we drilled in the JM zone across the deposit. So we hit the JM structure, and then we continued and drilled into the mineralization from the footwall side of the Shasta Fault. So this is kind of a spot in the deposit which kind of looks like a blob or a Christmas pudding. But this is what we're excited about, because this shows the continuity and the connected nature of the two zones across the whole deposit. So hole 2026 returned almost 200 meters of over a gram gold starting from near surface around 30 meters. So again, the red bars are over a gram, and some of the purples are over 2 grams. You can see that there's appreciable metal in kind of the cores of the two zones of the JM and adjacent to the Shasta Fault, but this long, broad mineralization between them. So this hole is pretty exciting because this does kind of prove the concept of the halo and the continuity across the project. And it gives us potential to kind of step north and south of this and continue to fill the gap between the two high grade zones. And again, the holes to the east of this one are very, very much under assayed. In this section, this is slightly west. We're still in the Creek zone, but this is slightly west of the historical mine workings. So we went in this. We wanted to test if there was still high grade material in the vicinity of the mine workings. So we drilled hole 40, and the hole stopped in what we interpreted to be mine workings. So we steepened the drill up a bit and tried again, and sure enough, we did hit a 34-meter intercept of over 7 grams and 100 grams silver. So this demonstrates that high grade material still exists outside of what was extracted, and this kind of leaves it open to go west and see how much more of this 7-gram material is how far it continues on. So now we're stepping quite far south. So this section and set of holes was designed to test the southerly portion of the Shasta Fault side. It's about 75 meters south of where the mine workings ended. For permitting reasons, we didn't go much further south, but we do intend to follow up on these results this year. Hole 4 and 5 demonstrate the same concept of a high grade pod surrounding the Shasta Fault, and a lower grade halo that continues on. This is kind of an updated section, including hole 30 from the previous section. The results showed 6.5 grams and 300 grams silver. in a 5-meter intercept adjacent to the Shasta Fault in this broader 45.8 meter 1 gram intercept. So it's again the high grade, and the halo continues on. So this being the furthest south we went, we have the opportunity to step even further south and continue finding these kind of intercepts and grades in somewhere where the historical drilling density kind of drops off. This section is quite exciting for us. So this is 700 meters south of the historical mine workings. The Cayley-Rainier zone is an area where the permitted mine area kind of snakes all the way down south, and there was some limited historic drilling around here. So we decided to test this and confirm historic results. The historic drilling was dominantly west facing, and we followed the same drill pattern to validate the historical findings. But then in the midsummer, as part of a kind of a retargeting and introspective look that we did, we swung the drill to 240 and stepped a little bit north. And that was hole 22, which hit the bonanza grade gold, which was 1.5 meters of over 50 grams and 5 kilos a ton silver. And had an intersection of 60 meters of 7 grams gold and 800 grams silver. So this is kind of important because it demonstrates that the mineralized system is still alive and well, quite far south of the kind of main Shasta area. And it presents an opportunity to take what we learned with the orientation and the structure and connect the Cayley-Rainier zone to the JM zone. It's possible that some of the historical drilling didn't recognize that the structure might change or the orientation might change. And that's why many of the drill holes between the two zones didn't find the grades that we found in this high grade pod. And now, so I guess the next question is, what's next for Shasta?
Yeah, I'll just say while you cue that up, Steve. So we're not going to talk about Baker, but Steve's going to put up a slide now that starts to show you where we're kind of thinking we're headed this coming season. I just want to say just quickly, a couple of other things then. 15 more holes still to publish from the 2021 program. We're excited to get those results out. We also ran some preliminary metallurgical samples. We need to get a news release out on those. We're excited to get that information out as well. I think it's all starting to paint a picture. We can join the dots. We hope that you can too. But Steve will now step you into where we're now thinking the priority targets are at Shasta for this season. And obviously the drilling, the dollars that we've just closed really is, gratefully received, because it means we can now get up there and start work again. I think Steve and the team are planning on being up there as soon as May. Middle to late of May as a technical team, but I think the drilling really won't begin possibly before July because we're still slightly weather dependent. There's still snow on the ground up there.
So is this on?
Yeah, I can see it really well,
perfect.
Steve.
So I guess that's what's next for Shasta. So we finally received all our assay data. The labs were quite backed up this year. We're going through the internal QA/QC to finalize them, but we have merged the historical database with the 2021 data. So we have a comprehensive database that we're building the solids and the grade shells in anticipation to publish the resource. As Fletcher said, we've undertaken some metallurgical work. We've sent some samples of appropriate grade to the lab to do some preliminary tests on recovery. We've recognized that there is an appreciable amount of silver at Shasta, so we're looking to see if we can improve silver recoveries to get something more favorable than what was previously investigated. In 2022, we plan to strategically drill Shasta to add to the mineralized material to feed back into a resource model which after another campaign of drilling we may update. So here kind of like the concept of Shasta. So the first is the upper creek or the upper JM zone, which is this kind of white circle here. This was the farthest. This was the first set of sections we looked at. This was the furthest we drilled in 2021. There's still an opportunity to go north and examine the continuity of mineralization going north. As you can see that the drilling is very much sparse and it's very undertested. The second area we want to look at is this circle here. So if you remember, that was the pudding hole, the hole 26. That was the deepest hole at Shasta, and it crossed the GM structure into the Shasta fault. So there's an opportunity to kind of fill the space between the two zones here. I can't rotate this, but it's kind of like in here. There's an opportunity to fill in all that mineralized material, that lower to medium grade halo across the deposit. The third was kind of an opportunity to investigate the bonanza hit here and how the structure relates to JM. Some of our preliminary thoughts is the structure might turn or horsetail, which is why although it was very under-assayed, but some of the historical drill holes may not have had the correct orientation to continue to find it. Another opportunity is one of the last sections on the Shasta side is this zone. This area is some of the worst assay density in the historical database. There's some 150 meter plus holes that are 10 meter assayed or less. So there's an opportunity to continue south from some of the results we saw in that southerly section. And then finally, the area even further south of Cayley-Rainier. This is kind of an example of one of the conceptual near mine targets that we're investigating. If you look at this is a total magnetic intensity map, and if you look at it with the grades on, it shows that the higher grades and the more continuous grades are in areas of magnetic low, and you can kind of see two trends kind of emerging. So we kind of look at this area and say, well, what is this huge dilational zone? It's past Cayley-Rainier. It presents an opportunity to explore for another near mine type discovery.
That's great.
So in conjunction, right now we're updating our geological model. We're remodeling the Shasta fault and the JM structure and the lithologies within the volcanic clastic pile with the data we collected in 2021. We plan to head back to camp in late May to examine the 21 drill core again to support these efforts. We're also planning in 2022 to do some grassroots type exploring, revisiting some of the historical soil, rock, geophysical data to explore the less developed targets in Shasta. They were kind of historically neglected as Shasta was the kind of main event. We're also planning on doing detailed hyperspectral analysis on all our core going forward to examine the mineralogy and the subtle alteration changes. So hopefully we can predict higher grade areas or areas of more mineralization based on the cryptic alteration.
Thank you, Steve. If you can switch off sharing your screen, I just think a couple of closing comments, and we have had a couple of questions. So I think really just for everyone's benefit, well done, Steve and the team for the 2021 drill campaign. Fantastic. Let's squeeze every drop of information we can out of it. We're now focused on 2022. Get back up there and let's keep going. And in parallel with that, what we're going to be doing is, as you're aware now, is we're going to be publishing that inaugural resource estimate, moving straight on the back of that to then bring together that targeting work with, that infill opportunity that we see at Shasta. Shasta will remain the priority, and look to drive that Shasta as rapidly as possible to a production decision. The questions that we've received. there was a question about how we acquired the projects. It's a good question. Talisker Resources acquired the projects from Sable Resources. Sable was the historical small-scale operator through to 2012. We agreed to acquire the Talisker assets in an all-share deal, which we completed in December 2020, and that was part of our listing event. And I think that's also something that's worth mentioning. We're just over a year and a quarter into this journey. And super excited to get back up there. Another question that we had was to clarify what Steve meant about improving the recoveries. Well, can we just say that the historical operations, the combined recoveries certainly in 2012 were very good, but they were operating on much higher grade material than we're contemplating. And where the silver grade was lower, the recoveries obviously dropped. And we think we can do better. And the key thing is to start now on that material, because that also helps you with targeting. Those who've had presentations from me personally know, and you've heard me say this before, that Shasta isn't a vanity project for us. It's not about how big Shasta can be. We're interested in obviously size, but also we want mineable ounces. And so everything that we can do along the way to vector in and target in on good quality ounces that we believe will add to that mineable profile, that's our focus. So Steve said strategic, I say surgical. And so we want to get in there, and we want to be, we're laser focused on discovery cost per mineable ounce. It's one of our key metrics for the year. And then, just to say, look, another question was about, okay, so what about the other projects? Yes, maintain them all in good standing, keep advancing them. Baker is this enormous conundrum. We're not going to pretend otherwise. People have been in there. There's lots of, historically, there's lots of great grade around. The challenge with Baker always, persists to be, the question of continuity. How much is there? And can you put enough together to add it into a mining profile? Whereas Shasta, we look at it and we see it much more through a lens of straightforward progress, advancement, and surgical application. So look, any other questions? Oh, there's one more just popped in. What sequence of actions will you take to improve the silver recoveries? Yes, look, the metallurgical work that was undertaken for us on the 2021 drill samples. So we took core samples from 2021. We provided those to Bureau Veritas. I think a lot more will become clear when we publish the news release that we're contemplating. What's happening right now is we've handed all of that information to Tetra Tech. As I mentioned earlier, Tetra Tech undertook the mill review for us back in 2020, and they sent up not just a mining engineer, but also someone with a metallurgical background. And so we've involved that individual again. And so we're pulling everything together. We're QA/QCing that work, and then we will design a program this year with the primary focus of trying to improve overall recoveries, but more importantly, helping us to target where we'll find the most mineable ounces at Shasta. And that's the game plan here. It's about getting to a production decision as rapidly as possible for Shasta. Christina?
All right, if there are no other questions, that concludes this webinar. Thank you everyone again for joining us today to hear the TDG story. Again, if you have any additional questions that we did not have a chance to address today, or that you didn't think of today, please feel free to reach out to me by email at kpelon@tdggold.com. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks everyone for attending.